What's up, everybody? It's your man Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars on a Wednesday. What characteristics should the Jaguars look for in a coach for the future? Also, where can they get wide receiver help? And thirdly, how long is it going to take for this team to finally get better? I'll tell you all of those things here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, good people? Thank you for joining us on Locked On Jaguars and making us your first listen of the day. And reminding you that we're free on all platforms. This episode is sponsored by Stance Apparel. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. All right, man, we're going to talk about a few things today. We just gave you a little bit of an intro, and I'll give you more. Coaching. Everybody's talking about who the future coach is. Now, I did a podcast Monday, and I said that one thing that Shad needs to do first, or the first thing he needs to do, is change football operations and the structure of that in the Jaguars organization and make it more like some of the teams, not all of them, because some teams have a real simple approach to it, but make it more like the teams like the Chiefs, where there's a substantial number of people with responsibility on the football operations side before you pick a coach. And once you do that, you get a GM and allow the GM to pick a coach and allow the coach to build his staff. But since we already talked about that, everyone is talking about the potential of certain coaches, some with experience and some without experience. It's been proven there's more than one way to skin a cat. It's also been proven that the Jaguars have tried every single one of those ways and they failed. There's no new way to approach it. There's no magic formula to getting it right. The thing that you have to do, though, I think one of the things that's key, which is why I say start at the top, is you have to have everybody in line. The football ops, whether it's director of player personnel or GM or whatever you want to call it, they have to be in line with the scouting department. They have to. Everybody has to be in line with the coach and understand that the coach is going to be the chef, and the coach needs to be supported. The coach doesn't need to be a robot for operations, but they need to be on the same page. Too many times in organizations, you have guys that are pulling different ways. It's because they're at different points in their tenure. And you get a lot of CYA, cover your you know what, and pretty soon it gets to the point where everybody wants to point the finger and say it's somebody else instead of them. I'd like a situation where at no point will people be able to do that. I'd like a situation where either it's all going to work or it all won't work. And when it's like that, even if it's a mess, it's a together mess, right? And you clearly identify what the problem is. When it's not that way, and we've seen it in the past here in Jacksonville, what happens is you when you try to make changes, you may make the wrong change, or you fragment change to the point where you almost change, which means in essence you don't. And if you got it wrong, there's going to be more of the same with just a different face. So I would really like everyone to have the responsibility. Whoever the director of football operations or GM is, when you pick your coach and he has his staff in mind, you're not going to sit here like the Jaguars are right now today. Folks are wondering if Trent Baalke is going to be gone just like Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer's gone because things were so bad, and he blamed everybody else, people that he picked. So you eliminate all of that when you get this right from the very beginning. All of you guys, everybody, as soon as you pick someone, what do they say in the mob? When you bring somebody in our organization, you're responsible for them. If they steal from me, you stole from me. And I think the Jaguar fan base really feels that they've been pilfered and stolen from for 10 years, and there's nobody to blame. And the only guy you can say is the mainstay, You can blame Shad all you want, but ain't nothing you can do about it because, well, he owns the team, right? And you can say, well, he needs to sell the team. Yeah, that's a long process. And not only is it a long process, it ain't going to happen. But even then, it still won't fix the issues. So why do I think they don't need to get crazy? They need to simplify it. They need some normalcy. I think Doug Peterson's a good answer. I also believe that guys like Eric Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich, although with the Leftwich, if you offer him a job, I think he should take it. But for Leftwich, if I'm Leftwich, I don't want to necessarily come back because then that story becomes more important than the actual work that you have to do in a sense. And it's something that all people always hold on to. But the one constant that I'm hearing from people is, well, you got to get an offensive-minded coach. Not necessarily true. You need a coach who knows how to get an offensive-minded offensive coordinator and a quarterback-friendly offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. More than likely, if you go out and get some super play caller, he might not call plays when he's the head coach here. And if he does, that might be a detriment. There are things that people actually do. There are jobs that folks actually do. It's like head coaches that don't call plays, they're busy, right? So when you assume that, okay, just look at it like this. Well, why would you hire a guy and not allow him to do exactly what he does best? That's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making about hiring a play caller is if he's going to be doing that all day, then there are things that other head coaches do that he's not going to be able to do. Or if he is, he's not going to be able to do them with the fervor that those guys do, unless he hires a strong passing game or offensive coordinator who's willing to help him on a weekly basis with game plan and how they want to go over things. So one of the things that I'm hearing a lot is if they hire this guy as opposed to that guy, this guy's going to need a very strong staff. I'm going to tell you right now, whoever they hire is going to need a strong staff. And if you come back with me and say, yeah, but this guy will really need a strong staff, then I want you to reevaluate whether that guy's your job or the one you think needs to get the job. Everybody needs a strong staff. I don't care who you are. You need a great staff. So that's relative. That's all relative. But if you think that somebody needs, yeah, but this guy might need a really, really super one of the best staff, then he's not the one for the job. I don't want anybody you give this job to be one, learning on the job. This ain't on the job training. You got the job because you're qualified. You didn't get the job because we think you're a quick learner, okay? The other thing is, and a first-time coach is going to learn some things, but the things that he learns are the things that we shouldn't see. You know, he should be ready to come out and have his team competing right away. And talent should be the only reason that he's handicapped, or the fact that he's starting at a team that's won 3 games in 2 years. It shouldn't be because of him, and there are things that he doesn't know. You need to hire someone that knows how to be an NFL coach, NFL head coach, even if they haven't been given a chance yet. So when we talk about the Doug Petersons of the world, I think a year away did good from him. I think a lot of folks will look at the Philly situation where they'll look at the way it ended and want to blame him for it. But then when you talk about the Super Bowl, they'll say, well, it just wasn't him. It was Frank Reich, and it was the ownership, and it was the whole thing. I don't know how you divide it too. I think he had a part in the way it ended, but he also had a huge part in the fact that they won the Super Bowl. And they're one of a handful of teams that went head to head with the GOAT coach and the GOAT quarterback and beat them with a backup. The Jaguar fans ought to realize, with the way that they feel about Nick Foles, that a guy who won a Super Bowl with that dude that basically took $50 million and left here, and he was now a second or third string in another city, he actually won with him. You don't think he can win with Trevor Lawrence? I do. Speaking of which, all of this talk about Trevor possibly being a bust, I talked to you about that Monday. I think that that's hogwash, and I think a lot of that stuff is pretty much overrated. You know, it's 1 year. It's 1 year. Now he hasn't looked as good, but he can improve. So you have to think too, who has it in their repertoire as a coach to really devote the time to making sure that you insulate him and you give him every opportunity to absolutely win at all costs. I mean, you have to look at that way because there are coaches who haven't been real quarterback friendly over the years. There are coaches who we just had one. The Jacksonville Jaguars just had Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer did not do everything that we believe he should have done to cultivate a winning atmosphere around Trevor Lawrence. Going all the way back to training camp. Training camp was terrible. And they did it all wrong, and they got off on the wrong foot. One of the things that they did was they thought they had enough weapons. It turns out that they didn't. So now everybody's on the quest to find wide receivers. Not only 1, 2, but people think they need 3 or 4 wideouts. I'm going to give you an idea of where I think the Jaguars can get it, can get that help. And one of the misconceptions about, and maybe not a misconception, but something that is being overlooked a little bit about how they can get the talent that they need in order to be successful at the wide receiver position. I'm going to go over all of that in segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars in just a second here on a Wednesday. I got to tell you, the Super Bowl 56 is at SoFi. It's at SoFi in LA. It's less than 100 days away. And On Location, the official hospitality partner of the NFL, is the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package. Select your exact teams and choose from elite experiences featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, 5-star LA hotels, and food by the great Wolfgang Puck. Visit onlocation.exp.com/SB56 for more information, or search Super Bowl On Location. That's On Location, exp.com/SB56, or search Super Bowl On Location. All right, man. Thanks again for making this your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. Welcome back here on a Wednesday. I apologize for yesterday not being around, man. I was a little bit under the weather. I'm not totally together today, but we're going to give it to you, and we're feeling a little bit better. Fortunately for me, I got my cramps in my stomach settled, and I got my fever down a little bit. So I'm ready to roll. The Jaguars are ready to roll too, roll right into the offseason so they can try to find some help at wide receiver and make an attempt to shore up the unit that's going to give Trevor Lawrence the best chance to be successful. Where do you get them from? I know because of the situation they're in, everybody's in a real rush right now to I did a poll that would you trade your first pick, and this is before they had the first number 1 overall pick. They don't have it officially, but that's the position they're in. I think they're like 4th when I did this poll. Would you trade that pick straight up for DK Metcalf? About 1,400 people responded. Once about 1,400 people responded, I looked at the poll, and it was a 50-50 split right down the middle. Some people said no. Some people said yes. Some people said only if he's able to do an extension. I ain't want to get into all that. The bottom line is you got him for at least 2 more years because you can always franchise tag him. He has he was in his 2nd year this year, if I'm not mistaken. So that means his 2nd or 3rd year this year. I forgot last year. I forgot a lot about 2020, but you at least have 1 more year in the contract, and then you can always tag him. Can't get a 5th-year option because he wasn't a first-round pick, which leads me to this. He wasn't a first-round pick, but the thing is there are a lot of receivers on the market right now that are in their first contracts that the Jaguars players, fans are interested in, and that leads me to come to this conclusion. Lately, a lot of the second-round wide receivers have been where the hits are, 2nd or 3rd round for that matter. I'll give you an idea of guys in their first contract that the Jaguars would absolutely love to have who weren't first-round picks. We just mentioned DK Metcalf. He's one. Michael Gallup is another. Cooper Kupp is another one. Robert Woods is in his 2nd contract, but there's another one. So there's a lot of guys around the league. Look at T. Higgins up in Cincinnati. There are a lot of guys around the league that are playing some big time ball. Terry McLaurin in Washington. So the key is you have to understand that historically and recently, even the guy who's been around for a long time, who is the top free agent wide receiver on the board and probably the best receiver in the league, Devontae Adams. What about your former player here, Allen Robinson? So a lot of these guys that people want the Jaguars to go after were guys who just within 3 or 4 or 5 years ago were chosen in the second round. That means you can probably, if you do your scouting right, remember I said go back and line it up and make sure you get it right, can pick a good receiver in round 2. So it's not all about trading your first round pick or a future first round pick or giving a guy $105 million in free agency, not named Devontae Adams, which I wouldn't do for anybody other than him, and I don't think he's coming here. Hope isn't gone when Chris Godwin got hurt. Hope isn't gone when Devontae Adams says, wherever Aaron Rodgers plays, that's where I'm playing. If he says that, that's just me. Hope isn't gone if then the top two if the Chargers franchise tag Mike Williams. Just like Hope wasn't gone when Denver re-upped Cortland Sutton and Patrick. They're 2 wide receivers. So every time something happens with one of these receivers, people tag me or hit me up saying, there's another one. Man, where are we going to get him from? Let me tell you where you're going to get him from. The same place those teams got those guys from. Second, third round picks. You're not taking a wide receiver overall, first overall. I don't think they're going to, if they do move down in the draft and get a bounty of draft choices, sure, I could see them taking a first round pick wide receiver, depending on what they are able to get in free agency. But the Jaguars, man, need to just get elite players, period, and do the work. And I know there's a skeptic out right now that says, wait, hold up, man. They've been trying to draft people for years and it hasn't turned out. Just because they tried to do the right thing and failed doesn't mean you have to get all crazy and silly and start doing the wrong thing, because that's what they've done too. Trust me, the Jaguars haven't always done the right, most sound thing. They've done some crazy stuff too. They got wild with it, and guess what? It cost them. You got, at some point, you're going to have to figure out that you got to make a good, solid hire in the front office, a good, solid hire in your coaching staff, and do the right thing in the draft. And be fiscal, but still do the right thing and try to improve your talent in free agency. And then be good at player development. That means that comes from me telling you that I don't think it's going to be overnight. And you shouldn't expect it to. And if you ask yourself, well, Wig, why were you so angry at Urban? It's because I knew what he was doing was wasting time. Just because I said it shouldn't be overnight doesn't mean you have all day. It doesn't mean that you can waste 2020 getting it to the point for a guy like Urban to come in and be butt naked in terms of salary cap with all of this money to spend. All of you can just go shopping and fill your whole house up and build it the way you want to build it. But then I saw the things that he was doing was wasting time. They're in no better situation now than they were last year, with the exception of Trevor Lawrence being their quarterback. And that's huge. But he's basically had a year of wasted development too. It's like he's going to be a rookie next year. You know what I mean? They're awful. How long do I think it'll take? With a new coach and a new understanding of what this thing takes, I'll tell you how long I think it's going to take, and I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. After I talk to you about Built Bar, man, I've been trying to tell you for I don't know how long about Built Bar, and it's so many flavors. You'll have a hard time choosing which one you like. Maybe you like raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream, or peanut butter brownie, or my personal favorite, salted caramel. I'm telling you, Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Here's the thing, too. It's not all chalky and waxy like a regular protein bar. It tastes like a candy bar because it's covered with 100% chocolate, so you'll definitely enjoy it. If you're just standing in shopping lines, Built Bar can be that extra pop that you need. And you're going to be the envy of everybody because they're going to want a piece of your candy. That's what I think. That's what they're going to ask you for, a piece of your candy. Little do they know that it's packed with protein, doesn't have many calories, sugar, carbohydrates. So it is really, really good for you. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. You can dip that thing into some hot cocoa early in the morning, or just have it with your coffee, or you can have it with a soda pop, as we call them, right in the middle of the day. Built Bar will be the thing that you want to get you going. So go to built.com again and use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your next order. All right, we thank you again for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. We've talked about what type of coach the Jaguars need, and then we've talked about what kind of weapons and how they can find some wide receivers without totally selling their soul, and how they can just relax and just try to do this thing the way it's supposed to be done. Now, how long is it going to take? I didn't think it was going to take when Urban Meyer took over in 2021. I thought they'd be ahead of where they are now. Because where they are now it's like stuck in quicksand in 2020. It's the same place with a better quarterback, right? And not even a statistically better quarterback, just a guy who has better talent who'll give you a chance over the long haul. So how long do I think it takes? I think the one thing this year has taught us is that we got to be patient. We got to be more patient. That every time you take a step forward, other teams take a step forward too. I really, really do believe that as patient as this franchise has been and the fans have been with this franchise, that folks will understand if a new guy comes in here and says, look, and everybody tries to win the press conference, but I think it's okay to think that a new guy can come in here and win the press conference when he says this is hard work. This is not easy. This ain't going to be overnight, but we're going to do this properly so that once we are good, it's sustainable for a long period of time. The word culture is overused. What does culture really mean, though? Culture means doing things the right way. Culture means winning over. You don't know if you have culture. Culture is one of those things that you can't prove you have until you have a sustained amount of winning, a great foundation, and then you can look back and say, this is when this all started. But when you're looking at it in real time, it's hard to try to sell people on the fact that there's these little things you have to do that doesn't show up in box scores or stat sheets, and it's not something that's really, really sexy or helps you sell tickets. Sometimes you just got to do things the right way. And that's why I go back to that front office. There has to be a commit. This almost has to look like you just bought 100 acres of land and you're going to build a subdivision. And the first thing you do is go to an architect, and then y'all start knocking trees down. When you start knocking trees down, folks cannot envision where the houses are going to go. But you gotta go in there and clear that land. And you got to put the proper pipes up underneath the ground and attach it to city water and attach it to the plumbing. Those are the things that you have to do. You have to infrastructure this team first. It can't be with swag. It can't be with just titles. It can't be hiring coaches to do this. It can't be fiery speeches at practice talking about swag and everybody wants to be a dog. It can't be using terms like warriors. It can't be all of that bragging stuff. It has to be real, tangible, hard work, almost boring-like for this thing to turn around. The fans have been so patient. I think folks underestimate how patient they'll actually be if they feel like things are being done the correct way. How can you tell if they play mistake-free? The hardest thing is getting a quarterback. They got that done. Or it got done for them because they were so bad. The rest of it, you just got to put your head down and go to work. You got to put your head down and go to work. And the evidence suggests to me that Jaguar fans are as patient a fan base as there's ever been. Yeah, you don't go out here and tell them, well, we're only going to try to win 4 games, because that's not what you're trying to do. But you realize, hey, if you can get to 6-11 and look respectable and show promise and progress, you can't make that step to stage 3 or 4 until you make the one from 1 to 2. So I know it's not exciting, but those are the things that I believe the Jaguars have to do. I said it Monday: fix the front office, restructure it, get more people in place for checks and balances, spend that money in operations, get the scouting department together, get the GM to pick a coach that aligns with his thinking so that you don't have a whole bunch of infighting, right? If a guy's good at cooking pasta, make sure you go buy the right pasta if that's what you want. But if a guy is good at cooking Mexican food, don't hire him to come cook Italian. That's just it. Everybody needs to be on the same page, so there's not just one voice, but one vision for this organization. I'll tell you what else you need to do, man. Make your second listen of the day the Locked On Bets podcast. Because when you get ready to make a wager, I want you to get paid as a result of it. And the best way you can do that is to make sure that you get all of the pertinent information that you need in the Locked On Bets podcast, hosted by your boy Q, and with guest Lee Sterling, who knocks it down every time, knocks it out of the park when it comes to information. That's where you need to go, the Locked On Bets podcast. Make sure you find that wherever you get your podcast. Like and subscribe and follow. All right, man, we're getting closer. We'll do a crossover show for tomorrow. And then after that crossover show, I'll give you one on Friday with a Christmas wish list for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Until then, you guys continue to take care of each other. And I'll talk to you tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars.